Okay, well let's talk about Light Season 1. It's over. It's officially over as of 3 hours ago. Which is like a really cool feeling. It's a cool feeling that I did this thing that I wasn't sure if it was going to be good or not, and it seemed like it worked. I have a board that I made back in, I want to say I made this in December, which you won't be able to really decipher very much, but it's still here, still made. This is my two pros and cons list that I made of doing a seasons approach, like a season pass approach, and a Patreon approach for light stuff. Thank you, MV. Thank you very much. So I had really been thinking about whether or not this season pass thing was going to be something that made sense, if it was going to be a viable, what you call it, business model, I suppose, or just a thing that I could do. And I remember when I was first thinking about this, I was really grappling with whether or not I should do this as this season pass thing or Patreon. And the big reason was because Patreon was a known entity in the RPG scene. People understand the concept that you're going to pay somebody like on a monthly basis and you're going to get something every month. Some Patreons like Adam Vass's give you a new game every month. Other Patreons are out there that like just continuously support the same game, so you're just getting more stuff. So that's a known entity. So I was like, well, that works. We know that works. But why not try something different? Why not try something that's, I don't know, I guess the unknown entity in the TTRPG space, hyper known entity in video games. The concept of like battle passes and season passes, that's like every game wants to have one of those now. I can't find a game that doesn't have something like that at this point. So, if I'm making this game that's heavily inspired by a video game, why not try and do some stuff that's inspired by it? The other reason, ultimately, I'll get into like stats and stuff like that in a second. The other reason, ultimately, I went with this method is because making RPGs is not my primary source of income. I'm a professor by trade, and so for me, making RPGs is a fun thing, which means I could just bomb, right? Like my RPGs could just bomb, and that would be okay for me. So while the Patreon was like maybe the safer option, the season pass thing was the strange experimental option. And as a scientist, as somebody who loves experimentation, I don't know how I couldn't have done the season pass. So here it is. Here's the season pass. Here's some stats. Let's just start with some numbers here. So there are in total 64 season pass holders, what I'll call people who bought the season pass. I'll show you this chart here and what this means in a second, but 64 people who bought it. The season pass was never up for community copies. It was one of the few games that I did where I didn't make community copies available for anything because it didn't feel right. I don't know. Maybe I'll go back and add them now that the season is over. I don't know. But so I know how many people own Spark because it only tracks people who bought the game. And I put the season pass up for pre-order before the season started, and I made it a little bit cheaper. So the season pass on its own is $10. You could get it for $8 if you bought it in the pre-order time period. As you can see, I got about a little over half my sales in pre-orders. So about 35. I didn't go through and comb it exactly, but it's about 35 sales in pre-orders, which means I have about 30 more people who bought the season pass over the course of time. And that was the big question that I was curious about, was can I convince people to be interested in buying the season pass after the season has begun? Because it's a weird thing to describe to somebody if you're not familiar with like the video game season pass concept of being like, okay, so It's February. You you can give me $10 now, and what you're gonna get is two more things. But there's also two things that you all already immediately have access to, and you have to wait for the other two things. And so it's kind of like a different scenario if you're buying it in January, February, March, or now April. When it's over, you can buy it and you just get everything, but you're not going to get anything more. It's done. Um, yeah, MV. I think that's true. I think that's a good point. Like getting about half of my people who bought the season pass to come after launch is pretty good. That feels good to me. Um, because I was really worried after the pre-order and the launch of the first module. There wasn't a surge of people who were like, "Oh, actually, this does look cool." Um, oh yeah, and then I did like a big sale, right, where you could just get it as part of like all my stuff, when I held things on sale. So I don't have it broken down into who bought it like with sales or anything like that. That would be an interesting thing to look at. Um, but yeah, I was really worried in the beginning of like, okay, I might have gotten my like 30 some people who are like into this idea, and then that might be it. That might be all I'm working for is for these 30 people. And to see that it kind of increased with time is cool. Let's do some other numbers before I show you charts, and then we'll just kind of like freeform talk about this experience. Oh, and if you have any questions at any time about any of this stuff or stuff that I haven't talked about but you want me to talk about, like just throw it in chat. I'm happy to. I want to be as open of a book as possible about this experience because if this is a viable model, I want people to have the data that lets them know whether or not it's viable for them. Um, if this is something that you're interested in doing, I want you to know maybe what you're getting into, at least based off of my experience from it with my following, which is not huge, right? I don't have like I'm not one of the big designers out there, so I don't have uh, like a huge fan base that will buy like every single one of my things. So this is just something to keep in mind if you're amateur like me. Um, so some other numbers. Light has 123 people who bought it. There are way more people who own Light than 123 people because I think I've given away about 200 community copies of Light at this point, last time I checked. So Light has many more people who own it. So I can't say that half the people who own Light bought Spark because that's not inherently true. You might have bought Spark and grabbed a community copy of Light. That's entirely possible. And that's something that I might be thinking about as I'm thinking about future season pass stuff or maybe what Light Live is going to be, is there's this concept of making the core game free so that anybody can get the core game, and then you pay for the expansion, so to speak, or the seasons or stuff like that. So, I think most MMORPGs do stuff like this. They, like in World of Warcraft, I think when I was talking with Jeremy about this, you can play like the first 20 levels or something for free. And then, then they're like, okay, you've experienced the game, you understand the game, you can stay here in the starting zone and just never get better, or you can go ahead and buy the expansions, which unlocks more stuff for you. Yeah, exactly. MV, that's exactly kind of that's why I was fine with continuously giving away community copies of Light, is because if I'm going to keep making stuff for Light, that's the stuff that I want people to buy, right? I want people to like potentially get this thing for free from Light and then look at all of the other stuff that they can go get if they want to continue to expand this game. So I love that it was sort of like community copies of Light, bringing people to be like, yeah, well, I got Light. The core game seems cool. I'll shell out $10 and try this season pass thing. See if I like it. Yeah. So like battle passes for Epic Games, free to play. Right. Exactly. So yeah, there's that battle pass thing in Fortnite, right? I don't play Fortnite, but I'm pretty sure like I think Apex Legends has the same thing where if you play the game enough, you've earned enough currency to buy the next battle pass for free, but you got to play like a shit ton, or you can just buy the pass. I have no idea how to translate that into RPGs, or if that's a smart thing to do, but it's a thing. Hey, Sir Heck, nice to see you. Welcome. So, let's see here. We were talking about numbers here. So yeah, we can't untangle this without doing like a real data scrape, and maybe future Spencer will do that, but that's not the point of this stream right now. But just this gives us a sense of numbers here. So really think about the number of people who own Light is really more like 333, and we're sitting at about 64 people who have the season pass. This is the Mothership model. Is it the Mothership model? I don't know anything. Is the core game of Mothership for free, and then you just buy a bunch of expansions and stuff? Yeah, perfect. So yeah, there you go. Mothership is doing that, which I think is a really good idea. I think that's ultimately what I'm going to do with when I ultimately turn Light into Light Live. I think that's going to be what it is. But I think instead of doing like modules for free, I think I like this idea of a subscription, so that you just like pay a small amount every month and just know that there's going to be stuff constantly thrown at you, which I think is cool. I understand like wanting to a la carte buy stuff individually, and that's makes sense why Mothership would do something like that. But also their modules are like larger and I think a little bit more intense than my stuff. My stuff is pretty small to make, pretty quick to make. So I think I like the subscription model, but that's good to know that Mothership is doing something similar. That's cool. That's very cool. Okay. Sitting at 6 ratings. I'm just going to put that there. If you want to go rate Light Spark, go for it. If you want to go rate Light, go for it. I'd super appreciate it. Ratings mean a lot on itch. They certainly help you get noticed. So, and if it's not a 5-star rating, like it's a fucking bullet to the head. So, if you want to rate it and you're like, that was pretty good, I'll give it a 4. Like, please don't even rate it. That would be great if you could avoid rating the game. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to show you was these charts before we just like ramble. So here's the lifespan of the game essentially. It's broken down weekly, and so you can see like here's the number of views. Like obviously most people were seeing it when I first announced the game. Hype is always at the highest when you're first announcing things. So like boom, of course everybody's looking at it, and then it like trails off, right? Then it gets slow, and then like on a weekly basis I'm getting about 100 people, 100 views on the page on a week. Here's the download count. This is really interesting because it has these peaks, right? Each of these peaks represents one of the modules coming out. Now, it doesn't have this week's peak in it because I just released the latest module 3 hours ago. But you can see, like, here's when the first module hit, here's when the second module hit, here's when the third module hit. And it's people going in and hopefully remembering. And that's the thing that I think is really hard and I want to talk about eventually is like, reminding people or getting people to remember that this stuff exists, to go download your stuff that you paid for. Here's where you can kind of see like in that first week I got like 30 some payments, and then it's just kind of like occasional stuff across the period, right? Like so there was like randomly here in mid-February where there was more payments than like kind of anywhere else, but it's really just kind of like picking up a handful of season pass holders on a week by week basis, 2, 3, 4, something like that. So that's how it breaks down in terms of the rate at which people would buy or subscribe to the season pass, look at the page and go in and download stuff. So these are the charts. And then here's the interesting thing is like, where are they coming from? They're usually coming from like my stuff. Hey, but MV, look at you. You are number 5 as a referral link here for the page. So MV, people are coming to this because of because of your stuff, because of your very good stuff. And I think that I think that's awesome. And it's all like, here's MV again down here. So MV's making this stuff happen. Oh, hey, I mean, here. Let me just be honest with you. This is how much it's made, right? Like I said, this is the open book. Make it as obvious as possible for you to, in terms of like how much the stuff makes. So, 64 times 10 would be more than this, but people bought it on sale and stuff like that, right? So that's how it comes out to about 525. So there you go. There's the numbers. In case you wanted to like screenshot them or hold on to them for the future or watch this in the future, that'll help you understand if this model makes sense for something that you're interested in doing. Okay, cool. So that's like the numbers data section. Any questions about like numbers or specifically, or things you want me to expand on? Because otherwise I'm just gonna ramble about these points that I made for myself until I feel like I've talked enough about the season pass. Oh, welcome, Tim Z. Thank you for following. Anyway, let's talk about the stuff, like making the pass and everything like that. So the workload for this, let me show you here's all the stuff, right? Here's what's called Kindle, although it's saved as subclasses, which drives me crazy that sometimes my PDF name doesn't match up with what I want it to be. But here's the first thing that came out, right? It was the subclasses for all the new beacons so that you could have like your here's your 3 new Colossi subclasses, here's your new 3 Stalker subclasses, and Witch subclasses based off of the elements. This stuff is all interesting. I really liked this. I made this first because it made the most sense to me. But what I ultimately did is, or what I think I'm going to ultimately do is not scrap this stuff, but I'm going to scrape it. And what I do like 2.0, I think there's going to be a much more customizable character sort of thing going on here. It does kind of feel like a blast from the past, doesn't it? In terms of like looking at all of this stuff, looking at all this, like this feels old to me at this point because it happened all the way in January. And I think that's something that I want to talk about. Here's Forge. Here's where I introduced the concepts of like armor that the beacons could wear. It was 4 months ago, right? Isn't that wild? Here's the different kind of like armors that the classes could wear. I really liked the thing that I did with armors where you had like a strange thing that you had to do to upgrade that particular armor so that it pushed you towards doing a particular thing. Like, for example, this one is like my favorite of the Colossi, which is have 9 enemies in orbit around you because of your gravitational pull. So like you're like pulling people. I think that's cool, right? It might not even be like an ideal thing to have happen to you in a strike, but I think that's kind of neat as a result of it. So these pushed you to kind of play towards certain things so that you could get better at things. And I look at this and I'm happy with this, but I also am seeing things that I want to change, or that when I ultimately do Light 2.0, like updating all this stuff. Like anytime I use the word damage, it's wrong. It's not supposed to say damage on there. It's supposed to say harm. So like I have to go through and update a lot of this stuff. But that's the thing to talk about here with this workload thing, which is I did all of this stuff on my own. I don't know what GAGM means. Good afternoon? Gila Monsters? Where's my Prime sub? What's up, bro? Good to see you. Can't sub to me yet. I'm not an affiliate yet. Shot in stream. Oh, good to see you, bro. Very good to see you. I did all this stuff on my own, right? So like there's inevitably going to be like things in there that I look back and I go, oh shit, I didn't notice that. I wish I could have fixed that, or something like along those lines. Fuel, that So like the interesting thing is this feels ancient. Um, and then this feels pretty old. And then Fuel and Arrival were only separated by like 3 weeks. So these two feel a lot closer to one another. The Forge and Kindle feel really old as a result. Nick Snacks. Was the process to get stuff out every month ever stressful, or was it manageable amount of work? Um, it it wasn't. Oh, hey Sam. Hey, awesome. It's always like the translation of usernames across places in space and things like that. Um, the the workload was never horrible, and that's something that I want to talk about when I talk about timing. Is this was like totally doable, completely doable for me. In fact, it was agonizing how long it was between things. For me, putting together a module like this is not a lot of work to me. Because my layout is very simplified, obviously, because I'm doing it. And it's just me writing stuff. And I have a sense of what I want to do for the next 2 seasons already. So, like, it's killing me that I'm just not writing it all right now and releasing it. Um, so, it wasn't, it honestly was not stressful. To do stuff on a monthly basis, which is why like I was thinking about on my board of doing it as a Patreon because I knew I could do something every month for sure. Especially if this was like my thing was light, like I'm gonna just be the light guy for a while. Then like the month to month thing is really easy. It does get harder when I'm like wanting to make other games at the same time, but right now I truly am only like stuff that I'm designing is this and Nova. Um, the Slayer's Almanac and the Corvid Court Aviary that are going to be made eventually. I'm not doing a lot of work on those. I'm coordinating people, but that's not a lot of like day-to-day work time for me. So that's a long, rambly way of me saying no, it wasn't horrible. Season 2 is going to be, I think, fine too. Now, the layout's going to look different. The layout is going to look different in Season 2. It's going to look better. You know why it's going to look better? Because Jam is going to make a template for me. Isn't that awesome? Isn't that great news? I got Jam to like do a module template for me. So not only are like these modules are going to look better because they're going to be like a new headers and lines and assets that Jam is giving me to do like to make everything look better, but then like MV in chat is going to make a badass map for the first module. Like I am going to, that's the big thing is next season I'm going to start hiring people to make stuff for the modules. I know, MV. Can you believe it? I've outed you on stream. Yeah, like I'm gonna. I want to just so that let me put this money back. Like this here is just going directly into other creators' pockets, right? Like I funnel all of this stuff back into hiring people to make this stuff look better. Because this looks fine, right? It looks fine. It could look way better. And so that's the process is hiring more people. So Fuel was really cool. Fuel was awesome because it also got MV again to make the light strike jam, which is really cool, which actually just had another entry today. So if you're interested in strikes, and that's what this whole thing is about, then go check out the strike jam because it's awesome. And there's a new strike out there right now that people can go download and play for light. Speaking of Arrival, this dropped 3 hours ago. This is the last module, and this is me writing a strike. Now, I kind of talked about this on a stream a couple days ago, so I'm not going to go through this whole thing again. But the premise is it's a multi-part strike that people are going to have to work through, and that it is a repeatable strike that has like sort of this fighting phase and then like this weird challenge test discovery phase. And it's something that I want you to play again and again and again, which is already kind of part of the core gameplay loop of Destiny, is that you go do that, right? You go play the same strikes again and again and again because you want certain loot. But also there's a mission in this latest season of Destiny on this like haunted ghost ship called the Glycan that you want to repeatedly run on it because you learn more and more about what's going on. So that's the premise here. And so I love this thing. What I would love to do is figure out how to put this into the Strike Jam without it being kind of unfair to season pass holders. Because I would feel bad if I took one of the modules from the season pass and just like made it its own itch page and submitted it for free. That would feel kind of bad. So I don't know how I can somehow turn this into something that I can submit to the jam. But if I can figure that out in like the next week, I will. But I'm really happy with this. I think this is cool, and it gives us a hint to what is to come in the next season. So that's what came out. And then there's this, and I'm curious if folks read this or not. I did sort of like a release notes thing where I did like a small written devlog for each of the modules, where I just kind of wrote about my like thoughts about why I made the thing that I made and why I thought it was cool. And so I don't know. Like the downloads on this was hard to track because I kept erasing or overwriting the file. So like right now, the devlog has been downloaded 10 times, right? And that's based off of the thing that got updated earlier this morning, essentially. But I don't know how many people downloaded it before that. So I don't know. But there's like a wrap up and everything like this. So if you like me rambling about my games and why I made them the way that I did, you can read my rambles now. Okay, so that's kind of like workload. I've been talking about like a lot of these things in and out of stuff. Here's the thing I want to focus on is the pacing of it. One thing a month is agonizingly long for me. If you've followed me long enough as a designer, you know that I'm like extremely impulsive, that I really struggle with waiting to do things. And that usually could be like to a detriment for me, but I do it anyway. I like to release things when they're done. And so waiting once a month is really hard, which is why Arrival literally got released on the 1st of April. I wasn't going to wait like 4 weeks or whatever between this and Fuel. That would have killed me to wait that long. So I released it now instead. So that I technically covered what I promised, which was 4 modules in 4 months, right? I had to wait until April, but the pacing was hard for me, and this is the thing that I'm thinking about in the future, is if I do another season pass, well, not if, when I do the next season pass, do I play around with this pacing? I had thought about trying to incorporate some of that light live stuff that I've been talking about in previous streams into it. I don't think I'm going to do that. I think that's going to be way too much for me to try and do at once. But what I am thinking about messing with pacing is like maybe releasing something every 3 weeks rather than once a month. That way, it's 4 modules in 3 weeks, which is 12 weeks, which is, approximately 3 months instead of a 4-month period. That will make things less horrible for me to just like sit on stuff and not make stuff. Because if like I need deadlines to make things, but if my deadline is a month away, I'm not gonna work on it until like the week before anyway. So if I can squeeze that deadline a little bit, make it a little tighter, that will feel better to me. So I think that's one thing that I'm thinking about for season 2 is that it'll be accelerated a little bit, not drastically. I remember I was talking with Nevin about this and said I'm gonna do 2 a month and just get it done in 2 months. And Nevin was like, I don't know about that. I don't think that's a very good idea. And Nevin is probably right. Nevin is a smart person. 2 a month might be pushing it. I might not release things at the quality that I want to release them at. So I think that's what I'm thinking about for my pacing. This next one is something that I can't answer on my own. This is something that I need honest, genuine opinions from people on. And, there's some folks here in chat who might be able to answer. I need to just generally go talk to a lot of people about this is the price. So the season pass costs $10. Does that feel fair? does $10 feel fair for 4 modules? I don't know, right? I'm so bad at pricing. I'm so bad at understanding what is a good price and what is a fair price and everything like that. And so, like Light itself, the core game is $5. And that comes with the core rules and like a bunch of modules and stuff like that. So, does $10, like you're paying twice as much for the core game as you are for the season pass? Does that feel right? It almost would feel better. Like $10 would honestly feel better if I made the base game free. If like the core game was free and then I was like, now you have it, go buy all of the season passes for $10 each, that feels better. I don't know. So I'm seeing some people who are saying 10 feels fair. That's good to know that it seems all right, or that I could even push it higher. I feel like if I was going to push it higher, I'd want to just make more stuff. But that's just me. I so struggle with the concepts of what I should charge for my work. And I want to be like fair to people. I don't want to price people out of being able to get my stuff. But I also know that can be problematic for other designers when you price your stuff low, that it can drive prices down, and that's not good either. So I don't want to be somebody who's causing problems for other designers by making my stuff too cheap. And then they look at somebody else's thing and go, well, why is this much? Spencer's selling all this stuff for like way too cheap. That's not good either, right? So the other thing about pricing that I want to think about is the pre-order thing. I did pre-ordering where it was cheaper. Do we like that idea of pre-ordering? An incentive to take a leap of faith with me, to be like, you have no idea what you're going to get. You just know you're going to get 4 things. Trust me. You'll like them. I think that's cool, right? Oh, that's an interesting idea, is dropping the base game for free once you've got like 3 seasons, right? Like got like a year's worth of seasons out there. So then it's like core game and the year 1 of seasons are out. You can go buy the year's worth of seasons a la carte or all as a package. And the core game works. I like that idea. I think that's smart. Oh, here's the other thing that I'm curious about, because I know some folks might have mentioned this earlier, is like, if you bought the season pass for full price, and then you saw that I put all my games for sale at like half price, would you be pissed? Would you not be happy about that? Be fair, like be honest with me. Like that's okay. Like that was something that I was concerned about, was, I was doing this big sale for my 1-year anniversary as a game designer, and I wanted to make all my stuff on sale, and I did, and then I realized like Spark was on sale, and I was like, oh, I hope this doesn't piss off anybody who has the season pass, who's like, well, I bought it for $10, and this person just waited until it was your anniversary, and then they got it for half price. So, Sam's fine with it. Sales happen in an industry, might think, oh, that was bad timing, but I don't think people would be mad about it. That's good to know. And that's also totally fair, to like not pre-order. That's totally fair, right? I've been burned enough times in the video game industry to not pre-order anymore. So I would understand the concept of like not pre-ordering RPGs as well. Yeah, that's true too. Like the concept of like, it was everything that was on sale. It wasn't like I just did a Spark sale where I was like, well, I don't have enough season pass holders. Let's get some more of you. It was all of my stuff. So that's good. That's a good point. Okay. Cool. Challenges and highlights and stuff like that. So, like I said, like challenges wise, it wasn't stuff like the pace of it. Like, I guess the pace of it was the challenge. My challenge about this was that I had a thing that I wanted to do for 4 months that, like, I I couldn't hype for 4 months straight, right? That would drive me insane. So when I dropped 2 modules, like I didn't do a whole lot of fanfare, which is probably a mistake, right? Like I didn't do threads on it for like a couple days on Twitter. I didn't really do much to try and push people to go look at it. I was just kind of like, hey, it's out there for those of you who already own the season pass. I was not trying to sell the season pass consistently. I think that's the big challenge is in like convincing myself and other people to keep looking at the page, either to remind them to go download the stuff that they have already purchased. Because I'm positive, based off of the download numbers, that there are people who bought the season pass who didn't download the new stuff. And that's fine, right? They might have been waiting till the whole pass was done, or like life gets in the way. But it's like, how do you remind people, hey, this thing you bought 3 months ago, there's another little piece to it. That problem doesn't exist in video games because you are already logging in once a week to get the thing, right? You are doing your dailies or your weeklies in the game, so you're already in the ecosystem. But you're not playing light every week. I know people aren't playing light every week, so they're not thinking about it. They might not even be playing it once a month. So it's like, how do I remind people to go back and download the stuff? And then like, how do I come up with a marketing strategy that is not me just trying to hype a game for 4 months straight, or it will be 3 months for next season? That's my big challenge. Right, solo rules for light so I can play. You should do that, MV. That would be really cool. Solo light rules. So this was also part of why I was designing Light Live. It was going to be this thing that you would get every week. Even if you didn't use it, you would get this prompt, a strike prompt, and a unique piece of loot that every week would just be sent to you. And it was like, okay, here's the thing this week. If you're playing light with your friends, go run this strike. And like that would help, right? Like if I had a thing that you were subscribed to that every week you knew you were going to get pinged for this alert to go play a strike, then there you go. You're going to constantly be reminded of that thing that's happening. The newsletter is a good point. I don't use my newsletter enough. I used it last month to tell everybody to go back frame, and then I didn't do anything else with the newsletter in March. So newsletter is important. You're right. I need to be better about my once a month newsletter and using that as a reminder for stuff. Yeah. Okay. So that's a good point. But if I'll be honest with you, if I show you my stats of newsletters, it's not very good, right? It's not good in terms of the number of people who open letters and then who click links in them, really small percentages. Like half of the people will open the email and then a really small percentage will actually click on any links. It's not a driving force. My biggest driving force is Twitter. People click on my stuff because I shout about it on Twitter a lot. So the question is, how do I shout on Twitter in an effective way for 3 months for this thing? That's going to be my thing to think about. Light Live was going to be the solution, but I don't think I'm going to do Light Live for this season. I might not even do Light Live for like a year. I don't know. That might be like the total rebranded version of Light, is it just becomes this thing called Live. That's like long-term future Spencer problem to think about. Highlights. I liked all of the things that I made. I enjoyed making all of the modules. I think Fuel was the most interesting one. I think this got the most people like talking both on Twitter to me about it and in my Discord. Lots of people were talking about Fuel. So I feel like this is like the big hit. Who knows? Like Arrival again just dropped, and I'm really curious to know what people think about Arrival once they read it. But Fuel was really cool. And then yeah, MV made a jam because of Fuel. So, you know, that's pretty awesome. So the highlights for me is every time somebody interacted with this and made something with it or played it. I got to play Light when this first dropped, so like back in January. That was really awesome. Getting to play this with the subclasses, that was super super fun. Um, this feels like the forgotten one, Forge. I think it's cool. I think it's interesting. It just requires making, I think, a lot more armors for it to feel fuller and better. Um, this I want to know what people think of Arrival. I know I'm doing this stream literally hours after it gets released, so I'm not expecting everybody to be like, all right, well, I've read it or I've played it, and here's what I think. It's just like I want I want to talk about it eventually with folks if they think it's an interesting premise that I've done here. Um, okay. What else do we have to talk about? Viability, future seasons, and a book. So yeah, let's just kind of talk about the future, and then that I can ramble about that for a little bit. And then I think we'll have recapped it, unless other people have direct questions or thoughts that they want to throw at me. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Okay, viability. Viability is something to think about as in terms of. Oh, fuck. Let's go pull up Kingslayer just because I want to show that off to people. That's a good point. MV. So this just got dropped. I didn't make this. Let me put the proper credit up there. Who made this? Redarax made this. So Redarax made this. Redarax has made a bunch of things. And actually, Redarax made a really cool light module back in the Light Jam that was a raid. It was like kind of like the first attempt at doing a raid, which was really cool. And so he then made Kingslayer, which is very cool. Cole, yes, Cole's his name. Thank you. And Kingslayer is a strike, and it's just I love how Cole did this, just in terms of like not, foregoing this. Like you don't have to follow my format. Cole went his own way, which is very cool. I'm not going to read all this out loud because I think you should just go buy it. It's a very cool strike, but like there's a cool sword you can earn in it. You fight a cool skeleton king, which is really neat. And then Cole added like whole new enemies, new weapons, and exactly as MV was reminding me, made new armor pieces, which is I think really the cool thing. Like I want more armor because making guns and stuff I think that's pretty straightforward, but making cool ass armor is, I think that's harder to do, but I think it needs to be a more compelling thing that people do. So go grab Kingslayer because it's awesome. It's a cool strike. Now you have another strike that you can go play in the MV mentioned the upgrades. Let's take a look at them. Fail 10 rolls. What a great upgrade. What an interesting upgrade, right? Kill 5 foes while you're veiled as a stalker. Very neat. Take 10 damage, right? If you're supposed to be the tank as the Colossus, go get fucked up. That's super cool. But like the cool thing is like the witch can re-roll those failed rolls, right? So like you don't mind if you fail because it's moving you towards your upgrade, and then you can probably make up for that mistake. Fuck, Cole, this is so good. This is like really, really good. Really good. So that's I don't know if that had anything to do with what I was talking about before, but here's what I think about in terms of viability, right? Viability is broken down into things like the amount of time it takes me to do. So time doesn't take me a lot of time to do this stuff, and with Jam giving me module templates, I'll be able to just use those assets to do this again. Like I used my own templates to do all this stuff, so you see similar sort of assets and things like that between different modules. They'll just look better because Jam is making them. So the time to make things is not going to be harder. The pricing of it is, in terms of viability, totally fine, right? For me, it's not my it's not how I pay my rent, so it's okay that I made X amount of dollars on the season pass over 4 months. I certainly couldn't pay rent with the money that I made, but that's not the goal, right? So viability wise, but what it is giving me enough to do is pay awesome creators to make stuff for my next stuff. That's how I think about it in terms of viability. Is that if I wanted to print anything, I could pay for that printing, and I can pay for some cool commissions in terms of that stuff. The other viability thing, though, is like, can I keep convincing people to do this? That's really hard to answer right now, right? Like I managed to convince 30 more people than beyond the people who first bought the season pass in the pre-order to buy in on it. So I can get more people to buy it. It's whether or not like I'm on my 10th season and people are like, I don't think I need any more light, right? That's the other thing is I think the season pass thing works in the beginning to kind of create like the core light experience, and then I think it needs to pivot. Then I think I need to pivot into something that's more like Light Live, which is going to be different. And I don't know what that necessarily looks like, but I don't know about a viability of a season pass thing being infinite. Wizards of the Coast could do this, right? People would pay Wizards D&D a monthly subscription. They don't do that, thank God, because I don't want Wizards to do anything that will make them succeed. But like Jeremy actually was kind of talking to me about this. Like you kind of do have a subscription to D&D if you play 5e, because every quarter they release a new book and you're going to buy the book, right? So it's just a quarterly subscription as opposed to a like a monthly thing or something like that. So MV, I know you asked about viability in the Discord, and I think that's the thing, is like pricing-wise, totally. Timing-wise, or work, absolutely, can handle that. How long can I do this and convince people that it's a thing that they want to buy? That I have no idea. I think it will eventually have to change. And I don't know what ultimately it will transform into, but it will need to eventually change. It might be one of those things that I do it for like a year. And this leads into my other 2 points here. Where I then create like an omnibus version of Light, like the Light year 1. And then Light changes in terms of how I continue to support it. If I continue to support it. But that's the thing to think about. So future seasons, I have 2 more that I want to do for sure. I've already in the process of working with some commissions to get people to make stuff for it. Jam to do the templates. MV, I was just talking to this morning about doing a cool map thing. So season 2 is definitely going to happen, and I want to do season 3. I have a sense of what season 3 is going to be in terms of some of the modules, so I want to keep doing it. Yeah, Light 2. 2 Light, 2 Beacon. So then, like, ultimately, does it get compiled into, like, a book at the end? That's the interesting thing, is do I take all these things that are like these disparate, separate pieces and then find a way to weave them together into a single product that makes sense? Which is going to require me to like, I can't just like paste the modules into one big document and go print. I'll need to like make sure that things make sense with one another and that there's sort of flow and everything like that. But I think making like a badass omnibus book of Light would be very neat to do. Like the Light year 1, I'd call it year 1 if I intended on keep making stuff, or just like Light complete or whatever it is. And then if it's complete and I'm done with Light, then that's it. If it's year 1, then I figure out my new business model, because I don't know about season passes beyond a year. But that's kind of been the first season experience. It's been really cool. It's been interesting. It's been fun. It's been agonizing at times in terms of timing and like, honestly, me just like dropping the ball in terms of marketing and advertising. But, I'm happy with the numbers as is, given that I didn't do crazy big pushes on it. I think the fact that it is based off of Destiny is the very reason that it got attention in the first place, right? Like my stuff that's not based off of Destiny doesn't get that kind of numbers on day one. So that helps, right? It helps that I've got something that I can call on. But I'm not making the mistake that I did with Frame. I'm not going to reach out to the Destiny people to tell them about Light. Fuck that. I'm not going to do that mistake again. I want to stay within my safe TTRPG community. Um, so I think that's it. I mean that's my light season 1 recap. It was fun. It was awesome. I can't wait to do the next one. I have cool plans for it. Um, here's my to-do list in April. It's gonna be. I have a lot of things that I want to do. Some of these things I've done. Right, I've done 1 and 2 essentially. I've got to do some more stuff. I got a whole bunch of stuff that I need to do. But I ultimately want to, and you can just put this in your calendar, sometime maybe mid-May, I want to do like a launch event for season 2. I don't know what it's going to be. No idea. Streams, giveaways, contests, interviews. We'll see. But that's on the future. I kind of posted about this last night that I want to do this sort of like A/B design process in April. It's going to be a new thing that I'm going to try. So like A days I do Destiny, B days I do Nova, not Destiny, Light design, and then B days I do Nova design. And I want to kind of just go back and forth. I think by jumping back and forth, it keeps me like interested. Doing one thing for multiple days in a row, I get distracted. I get bored. But this will be. I'm going to try this A/B design thing, and I got a lot of work to do with Light in April, but I'm super excited. So that's it. I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you all so much, first of all, for watching. I appreciate that, and chatting and everything like that. That's I love that. But I also just thank you so much for everybody who has supported Light and Spark the first season. It's been cool. What a fun experiment that we have all done together, and I really appreciate it. If you have other questions or things like that, you can always just talk to me on Discord or on Twitter or anything like that. But hopefully you learned something. Hopefully this was interesting to you. It was really interesting to me. It was nice to just kind of chat about it. Yeah, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to go hang out with my dog now. So have a great rest of the day or night, wherever you are, and I'll talk to you all later. Bye.